morning. Happy Colin Simmons Day to everybody. Good morning to you. Happy, Thursday to you guys as we, again, just keep going on this hot month of August here. August the 10th. Super excited to see everybody. Super excited for everyone to be back. Hopefully that you're getting the notifications as everyone starts piling in. Big show today. I'm super excited because today is officially Colin Simmons Day. I've anointed that as Colin Simmons Day. Now, listen, it'll be Colin Simmons Day, of course, if he commits. If he doesn't, then it'll be something totally different. We'll just rename the day. It'll be a happy hour day, and we'll just go ahead and get into our drinks and our feelings. But no, come on in into everything. Welcome back to the old-fashioned sports show. I am your host, Anwar Richardson, and I will be here a little bit shorter than normal. I'll be here. Usually I'm here from 8 to 10. I'll just give you kind of a heads up. I usually am here from 8 to 11, excuse me. I'll be here from 8 to 10. Texas actually has some media availability a little bit around 11 o'clock this morning, maybe 11:15-ish with some of the players. I'm assuming and hoping that I might be able to finally get a chance to talk to Quinn Ewers during training camp. So that might be something. So, of course, I live out in Cedar Park. I got to get to downtown Austin, so something's got to give. I can't do the show in the car, so that doesn't. So first of all, Cedar Park Police Department, who will pull you over for anything, they won't be appreciative of that, and I don't think those will be safe driving. So we're going to cut the show short, but I will not cut you short when it comes to some of the content and some of the segments that you like. So just know 8 to 10, but we will be there. All right, Jeff Ketchum, he will be here within the next. Well, 8:20 Central Time. So wherever that is on you guys, need about 17 minutes or so to give us kind of just the Colin Simmons primer, the thing that we need to know, all the things that you need to know for those who've been following the saga, for those who are new to the saga, if you're just joining in, you're like, what the hell? Who the hell is Colin Simmons? 5-star defensive end out of Duncanville. He's going to announce what school he's going to today. I'm going to see where Ketch talked. I know Ketch talked to his sources last night. I know Ketch has checked in with his sources this morning. I will get the latest from Jeff Ketchum on that and relay that to you. And then, of course, he'll be making his announcement at 2 o'clock today. So we'll all be ears. I feel like he's on a lot of different networks. I'm not quite sure which one he's actually announcing on. I don't know if it's on 24/7. I don't know if it's on on 3. It seems like it might be a combination of both. I don't know what's going on, but apparently he's struck deals with everybody. To the victor goes the spoils. Who's ever willing to take you, I guess to go ahead and take it. So anyway, we'll have that coming up a little bit later on. And we'll talk a little bit about Colin. We got a lot about Colin going on. So, and by the way, this opening drive is brought to you by my main man, El Presidente, Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Check it out. If you are looking for a home in the DFW area, when I say you don't have to look any further, you do not have to look any further than Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Has got you covered. You're looking to buy a home, you're looking to sell a home. I mean, whatever it is, he's going to take care of you. He's a Longhorn man. He's a Longhorn fan. He loves his horns. He's predicted 12-0 this season. That alone should be the reason why you go out and go ahead and partner with this guy because he's really fun, really great. So Eric Sells Homes, DFW. Hit him up. Give him a call. Let him know that Anwar, a.k.a. the Unk. I don't know what to do with Unk anymore. We've moved into this mode where I feel like it's kind of going from the rappers of old, who now do films, and you're like, oh, they got soggy, and I feel like that's where Unk is kind of going. I've kind of become like the Ice-T of host at this moment, just kind of like, oh man, he was wilding out back in the day, and then I'm like a cop on a show, I'm like, yeah, man. I'm going to go ahead and solve this case on you right now. Like, that's how I feel, like the Ice-T of everything. So, well, let me go ahead and get into the opening drive because this thing is Colin Simmons related. And allow me to kind of set this thing up. And some of you guys really are funny sometimes in the chat. You're like, Anwar is like a preacher. And sometimes it does sound like a little bit of that, but it's okay. So allow me to set this thing up. Jeff Ketchum will be here in the next 15 minutes, okay? I started thinking about Colin Simmons, and it started with me as I started thinking about like an often in life, right? we have people we have this thing of doubting people who seem to show up consistently in our lives, the people who have proven their abilities and their capabilities, yet somehow those people always get doubted. They've shown their abilities, they've shown their capabilities, but yet they get doubted when the time comes to shove, push comes to shove, right? Think about it. Let me give you a couple of examples. I'll do one for the fellas. I thought about you guys and I want to set you guys up for the fellas. Think about every guy who is stuck in the friend zone. Now that guy shows up consistently. That guy is there when the breakups are there. That guy is there for the good times, the happy hours, the vacations that you want to take, like all that kind of thing, man. That guy shows up. He proves his abilities. He proves his capabilities, and nonetheless, he gets doubted as far as what he could potentially be in a relationship. Even though this person shows up, every fellow who's been in this friend zone understands, like, okay, how can you swim out of this thing? You can't. You're gonna try, but you can't. But that person still gets doubted. Forget for their abilities, their capabilities, and things that they've shown and proven consistently. I started thinking about like sports athletes and those people. And I thought about LeBron James because we're going to enter in this season with LeBron James. It's going to be the same narrative that we always hear. This is going to be the time. This is going to be the time when LeBron falls off. Oh, this is going to be the year. Oh, we're not going to see it from LeBron. He's not who we used to be. And people will start talking about certain things. Oh, the certain championships and where is he better than Jordan? And all these kind of weird things. And yet, I looked up LeBron's stats from last season. And LeBron averaged 28.9 points per game, 8.3 rebounds, 6.8 assists. And how old is he? In the year before that, LeBron averaged 30.3 points a game, 8.2 rebounds, and 6.2 assists. He proves it. Proven abilities, proven capabilities, yet still gets doubted. I thought about Tom Brady, right? And again, Tom Brady is considered to be the GOAT. But when he went to Tampa Bay, people were like, Tom Brady, not a strong arm. What's he going to do without Belichick? I don't know about it. All those rings, championships, seemingly didn't matter when it was all said and done. And what does Tom Brady do in year one? Just leads Tampa Bay to a Super Bowl, 31-9 against Kansas City at the age of 43 years old. And then you can say, well, what about the other years in Tampa Bay, right? What about those other years in Tampa Bay? I looked it up. The following year, Tom Brady had 5,316 yards, 43 touchdowns, and only 12 interceptions. And that was at the age of 44. Last season, it was the final season. Bucks weren't really that good. Tom Brady, okay, in a down year for Tom Brady, threw for 4,694 yards, 25 touchdowns, 9 interceptions at the age of 45. Yet, no matter what, he was always doubted for everything he was able to do, his abilities and his capabilities. Last one, Nolan Ryan. I'll give you a baseball one because I know some baseball fans out there. His last no-hitter, he threw at the age of 44 years old. And how many people doubted that he even had anything left on his fastball by that point and to even think about something as crazy as a no-hitter? Yet, doubted for the things that he's proven, the consistent things that he's been able to do, his abilities and his capabilities. And that brings me to Steve Sarkeesian. Because when I think about Steve Sarkeesian and I think about the narrative that's out there, I think to myself, here's a person who continually gets doubted for his abilities and his capabilities, the things that he has shown and proven. And that comes with him, and that area comes with us talking about recruiting. That area of him being doubted for his abilities and capabilities as relates to the subject of recruiting. It's like we having this conversation about Steve Sarkeesian. And it's somewhat disingenuous because there's a lot of the panic button on what's going on, especially in the 2024 class. And all of a sudden, everything that Steve Sarkeesian has done throughout his career, throughout his history, whether it's been at Texas, whether it's been at USC, all of a sudden, all that's thrown to the side. The baby's out with the bathwater, which, by the way, is a weird analogy, by the way. But nonetheless, the baby gets thrown out with the bathwater, even though he has shown it through his capabilities and his abilities. So when we think about it, because we talk about, well, right now, Steve Sarkeesian only has one guy ranked in the Rivals top 25. Kid out of Dangerfield, Texas, but I believe his name is Aaron Hampton. I believe that's looked how it was spelled. If it's not Aaron Hampton, then it's Aeryn. Sounds like Aaron Hampton, but if it's not, I'll correct it. And people look through down that list, and they say, man, there's no Micah Hudson. There's no Kobe Black. And man, oh man, if he doesn't get Colin Simmons, woo, that's the thing that will determine in many people's mind if Steve Sarkeesian is still a good recruiter or not. One player today at 2:00 ends up being that one thing that ends up having Steve Sarkeesian's whole reputation hanging in the balance. Because if you don't get Colin Simmons, oh boy, even though he's shown it and it's proven it. So let's go back. Do we have to remind anyone about when Steve Sarkeesian pulled down the number one class when he was at USC? Is that too far ago? To mention that? Okay. All right. Well, I'll let that go. Apparently, that's ancient history, right? Don't have to give the man the benefit of the doubt as relates to recruiting for the 2024 class. How soon they forget, though? What about 2023? When Steve Sarkeesian ended up with the third-ranked class in the country. And just so happened to have signed a couple of 5-stars. You may have heard of them. Some guy named Arch Manning, who apparently is pretty good. Some guy named Jonte Cook, who everyone can't stop talking about and raving about for what he's been able to do this entire offseason leading up to the season. Oh, yeah, by a guy by the name of Anthony Hill, who is the 5-star linebacker, right? Pretty darn good, right? I think that's safe to say when we talked about Anthony Hill. Yeah, Steve Sarkeesian, once again, gets doubted for his abilities and capabilities. What about the 2022 class? I guess if that was only ranked 5th in the country, right? He only signs DJ Campbell, the 5-star. Some recruiting services had Kelvin Banks ranked as a 5-star. So depending what you want to look at, too, I have to look at Rivals because I'm in the Rivals network. 5th ranked class in the country. Yet still gets doubted for his abilities and capabilities. And then we look at the transfer portal. Let's go look at the transfer portal and look at Steve Sarkeesian in that area. I mean, as a recruiter, he pulls in Quinn Ewers, right? That happened. I mean, 5-star. So wait a second, he's got 2 5-stars in his room. But we're kind of worried about where he is as recruiting as at this moment. He pulls A.D. Mitchell out the transfer portal. One of the top receivers in the transfer portal this year, coming out of Georgia, that looks he's going to start. Looks like he's going to have a huge impact. Steve Sarkeesian was able to do that. Some people, what about Colin Simmons? I mean, he pulled Isaiah Nayor out of the transfer portal the previous year, and Isaiah Nayor was viewed as the number 1 wide receiver in an entire transfer portal out of Wyoming, right? Pulls Keelan Robinson out. Well, I don't know what about it. He's running back. What about the bowl game? This and that. Wait. Keelan Robinson, if you look at his special teams contributions, who the hell else would you want on special teams when it's time to go ahead and block a punt? Give me that guy. 7 days a week and twice on Sundays. I talk about the early service. I talk about the afternoon service. And if you got a nighttime service, give me Keelan Robinson for that one too. And look how amazing Keelan Robinson has been. Pulled that one out there. Oh, Jalen Catalog, right? Out of Arkansas, who, by the way, is going to start this season, who, by the way, has been balling out all throughout the offseason, who, by the way, is bona fide. Transfer portal is part of recruiting as well. You can't ignore that portion of it. Steve Sarkeesian has been so good at this whole recruiting thing. He even pulled a punter out of the transfer portal. Ryan Sanborn brings a guy in from Stanford. That's where he is from a recruiting standpoint. And he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, we need a punter. So let me go out and find a real top one, elite one. I'll go ahead and recruit that guy. That's how good Steve Sarkeesian has been. But yet, once again, he has the abilities, he has the capabilities. But sometimes in life, we just doubt those people who can do it, who show it, and who've proven it. What happens today? What happens today? What happens if Colin Simmons somehow, some way decides that he's going to go to LSU? I want you to think about this when people, if that happens, I don't know. But I want you to think about this. If that goes down, when people start saying the sky is falling, when people start saying this, what is Steve Sarkeesian doing? What about this class? It's going to be an absolute disaster. It's going to be an absolute catastrophe. This thing is heading down, not going to be in the top 10. When you start hearing all the negativity, if it happens, of course, I'm not asking for it to happen. Hopefully it doesn't happen because I want to do Mimosa Friday with you guys. But if it does, then let's go into the other realm of what Steve Sarkeesian has done really well. Let's talk about flipping. Let's talk about how he was able to flip a guy like Kelvin Banks from Oregon. Yeah, that by the way, happened. Let's talk about how he was able to flip a guy from Texas A&M, a guy by the name of Anthony Hill. Xavier Worthy would technically count as a flip because he was going to go to Michigan, but he was able to flip him. Colton Vasek was supposed to go to Oklahoma. Steve Sarkeesian ended up flipping him. What about DeAndre Moore? Supposed to go to Louisville. That person got flipped. Warren Roberson, supposed to go to TCU. He got flipped. How about the defensive back, B.J. Allen, who was supposed to go to LSU? He got flipped. Keep going, because I had to ask him for a little bit more. C.J. Baxter at one point was committed to Florida State. Just put that out there. He did end up here at Texas. Billy Walton was supposed to go to Oklahoma State. He flips over to Texas. Savion Red was supposed to go to SMU. He flips over as well. Terrence Brooks, Ohio State. Ethan Burke was supposed to go to Michigan. I mean, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? So when we start thinking about everything as relates to Colin Simmons, and we start thinking about the panic that may or may not be out there, and we start thinking about the doubt that it could be out there, like I said, some people show their abilities, some people show their capabilities, and yet somehow in life, they don't always get the credit that they deserve. And I think when it comes to Steve Sarkeesian, it's about time for us to sit back, relax, and no matter what happens today, if there's a victory, you say to yourself, yes, this is what he's done. This is who he is. This is who he's proven to be. It's 100% certified bona fide. That's what he is. This is his capabilities. This is his abilities. And even if the worst happens, then go back to his resume and know he won't give up. He'll still stay there. He'll still keep recruiting. Think about the guys that he's flipped. And know, at the end of the day, sometimes you just got to give people their props. And sometimes you got to remember the past. Because sometimes the past is a really good indicator of the future. Okay, let's go to a small little pause. And on the other side, we're going to bring in Jeff Ketchum because we've got a lot of Colin Simmons to talk about, Got a lot of Colin Simmons to break down. Do me a favor, hit that like button. If you just your first time watching it, you haven't subscribed, subscribe to the channel. And listen, do me a favor, just share this with some of your friends right now. Hey man, there's some stuff's about to go down today. They're going to start talking about Colin Simmons. You're a Longhorn person. You need to know about this. Go ahead and share the video as well. And we'll be right back.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback takes a look back at the single lowest rated recruit of the 2020 recruiting class and one of the 5 lowest rated position players that the Longhorns have signed in the last 5 recruiting cycles. That's right, I'm talking about senior All-American linebacker Jaylan Ford, a lowly 3-star prospect who ranked as the number 127th ranked player in the state of Texas per Rivals. Yeesh. Ford's recruitment began in earnest in the spring of 2019 when he picked up 16 offers by the end of May, including Power 5 offers from the likes of Kansas, Minnesota, Utah, and Texas Tech. Still, the recruiting services paid him no attention. After taking unofficial visits to Oklahoma, Oklahoma State, and Hawaii, Ford took his first official visit to Texas Tech in late May. Quote, "This is my only official visit for the summer," Ford said at the time. "I'm looking to visit Washington State and Utah early in the season, so maybe I'll be ready around September, then make a decision and announce my commitment shortly after that." True to his word, the trip to Utah proved to be a game changer for Ford as he committed to the Utes on October 8th of his senior season, right after taking his official visit to see the Utes. Very quietly, though, the Longhorns became involved in his recruitment a month later. After Texas assistant coach Tim Beck visited Ford at his high school, Tom Herman called him a week later to offer a scholarship. Ford did a good job of keeping the news of Texas's interest under wraps. In fact, in early December, Ford told Orangebloods that he hadn't even been talking to the Texas staff. At the time, Lone Star was alive in the Texas State playoffs, and Ford said he wanted to remain focused on his team's playoff run. Once Lone Star season came to an end on December 14th, Ford began to focus on his upcoming decision, and he finalized the decision to commit to Texas a week later. "It was really right before I was going to sign," Ford said. "At that point, football is over. I finally had some time to sit down and think. The day I didn't sign, the first day of signing day, I had to call Utah and Texas. It was a little bit chaotic." On December 23rd of 2019, Ford committed to the Longhorns, and the rest is Texas football history.
Jaylan Ford. Absolutely a good one there, Catch. And so it is time for us to go into the Speakeasy Lounge and bring in my main man, Jeff Ketchum. We got to talk about Colin Simmons. Good morning, Jeff Ketchum. We are the Men in Black apparently today. How are you doing?
I'm good. I won't be in black all day, but
okay.
I just grabbed a clean shirt. Like it was either this or wear the shirt that I had on yesterday. I didn't want to be like a homeless person. So I just grabbed what was there. It's amazing what happens when you take your clothes to the cleaners and then don't go pick them up. I'm going to go pick them up, but I didn't dare want to miss 8:20 and our chance to talk. So you wear what you got. I'll worry about 12 o'clock in the Colin Simmons live show later today with different gear. But today, yes, we are the Men in Black.
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I'm like you. I will drop off my dry cleaning. It'll be weeks before I even think about picking that thing up. And I'll just be towards the end. I'm like, oh man, I need to go get my stuff, man. Like it's been there for like too long. It's just out of sight, out of mind for me at that point.
Well, because you take the bag and then you still have other clothes. Yes. So it's not till you're really ready to take a second bag to the cleaners that you go pick up the first bag. So it's not like I only have 5 shirts. Yes. It's like I took like 10 to the cleaners and then I forgot about it. And then I've worn like another 10 or 15. And now I'm looking in the closet and I'm like, Do I put on a sweatshirt?
Hey, Catch, before we get into Colin Simmons, do you want to tell everybody what we got planned from a programming standpoint today, as far, because this is a big day, and I feel like we're going to try to treat it from a coverage perspective, as for how it deserves.
Well, yeah, look, we're going to have feet on the ground at Duncanville High School probably in about 3.5 hours. Aaron Little will be covering the proceedings, and he'll be getting there, I think, a couple of hours early to get the lay of the land. You'll probably start seeing photos of like Duncanville High School signs and any balloons and stuff that get put up. Like we'll have all of that coverage. Chad and I will go live at noon for House Divided. It'll be our normal show up until about 2 o'clock, although we'll have Aaron Little on live from Duncanville to kind of set the scene less than an hour before Simmons announces. At 2 o'clock, yes, 24/7 will have the Colin Simmons announcement live. As you said at the top, hey, to the victor go the spoils. Kudos to 24/7. Feel free to go to their national website, watch the announcement live in a different browser. And I say this because I have like a widescreen on my for my computer.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have like 10 Slacks over here. I've got multiple YouTube browsers going. Like, do the thing where you delay us by like 15 seconds. Watch Colin Simmons announce, immediately come over to us and watch us react to the live announcement. And then I would say for the next 2 hours, it's going to be wall-to-wall Colin Simmons analysis. Jason Sukamel will join us. Aaron Little will join us again, maybe Cole Patterson. And we're hoping, I'm going to throw this out there. I'm not even worried about jinxing it. I can't control it. But we will attempt to get Colin Simmons to join the show as well. So House Divided will go a little longer. We'll go to about 4 o'clock. So Rod Baber's show will be interrupted by about an hour while we give the Colin Simmons treatment, the full treatment. And then Rod Babers will come on at 4 o'clock. And I'm probably going to sit in with him for a little while and get his reaction to Colin Simmons. One of the things I wanted to talk to Rod about was whether he thought he ever really played with a guy at that position at Texas. It hasn't happened a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Onward, it's been 17 years since the Longhorns have signed a 5-star edge prospect. These guys don't grow on trees, and wherever they do grow, Texas hasn't been able to get their hands on one. So when we talk about the significance of Colin Simmons and why are we doing this? Why are we talking about him to this extent? Like, why? He's a unicorn of a college football prospect. And the Longhorns haven't had a unicorn edge prospect in half a generation, because I think a generation is like every 33 years. So, there are men in their mid-20s that have never seen Texas with a guy like this, prospect like this, playing the most important position on the defense. So That's why we're doing it. It's a really big deal. And we will have wall-to-wall coverage here on the channel all day long. And obviously, we're going to have you covered at orangebloods.com. I'm actually in the middle of writing my instant analysis column that will be posted, assuming he commits to Texas later today.
So, Catch, I know you check in with your sources as far as this thing is concerned, and I'm sure you checked in with them last night. I'm sure you did some check-ins this morning. Give us the latest of where this whole thing stands as we're only a few hours away from Colin Simmons announcing.
Well, I think there's been a lot of back and forth for the last 9-10 days, where the moment he comes back from LSU, he's riding the high of the visit. I think that there was some real concerns that the emotion and just the pure high of having a great visit might impede all of the progress that Texas had made for months, really. I mean, it's been a buildup. They get him on campus in late June. I think there's a sense that he's absolutely coming to Texas. So I think for the last few days, I think there's been back and forth. I know that the family's been talking to both the coaching staffs at Texas and LSU. I think in the last 36 hours, I think LSU starting to sense that he's going to end up at Texas. You've seen, I think, LSU coaches notify LSU media, and LSU media yesterday started putting out concession speeches, very similar to the coaches that interview for jobs, know that they're not going to get the job. So what do, Anwar?
Yes.
They put out a statement that says, I'm no longer interested in coaching this particular program. I'm happy where I am. Yes. Don't pay any attention to the fact that I went to that town, interviewed for that job, almost left the program. I'm happy. And I think we saw that yesterday. And I think the anticipation today is that he's going to commit to Texas. And it means that Texas will have been able to survive this LSU push over the last couple of weeks. And that for all of the reasons that it looked like Colin Simmons would commit to Texas a month ago, look to have won the day, if you will.
You know, when I had Cole on yesterday, I mean, he kind of downplayed the Miami portion of it. And he's like, he said he got a text message that said, you know, hey, don't count out Miami. But he kind of like, he kind of shoulder shrugged that away. By any chance, are we just sleeping on Miami? Like, is there any possibility? Because Miami does spend in NIL, they do spend on the people that they want. So that's not a thing that's uncommon. Is there any possibility we're just overlooking that like little brother over there and they've got something cooking or brewing?
All right, I'm going to tell you something I haven't told anybody else, not even on my own show, not in a column on Orangebloods, not in an update. I kind of just took this piece of information in and ignored it. Not ignored it. I just, in the grand scheme of things, there's no reason to yell fire in a crowded theater or – so here's what happened. Okay. I'm talking to a source yesterday, and this particular source was telling me LSU is out and Miami's number 2.
Okay.
And my source was like, get the fuck out of here. That's a direct quote. That's not me paraphrasing. I didn't drop an F-bomb on Thursday morning for the sake of effect. That's what he told me. So I didn't make a big deal out of it. I just think that one of the things that we're seeing behind the scenes is that when you're talking about a 5-star player, you're talking about a guy with a lot of leverage. And I think this kid's going to end up committing to Texas today. But I think that maximizing his upside in NIL, and you and I are the least naive people in the world. From the moment that NIL started, we were like, this matters a lot. And don't ever try to tell me that it doesn't. There are a lot of people with some antiquated ideas that like, well, no, he's really coming to Texas because he loves the academics and he wants to, he wants to stay home and state pride. And look, those things matter. Being close to his family matters. He loves Steve Sarkeesian. That matters. I think he likes Pete Kwiatkowski. I think he likes Jeff Choate. I think he likes players in the program. But at the end of the day, like NIL is a really important thing. And I think that up until signing day, there will just be a continued desire. If it was me, I would keep asking for things until I'm told no. LSU has limitations. Miami less NIL limitations, I think. So I think if you're hearing that Miami is involved, I think it's because they swing a big bat on the NIL side of things. But I would be stunned. And I would, if he commits, you know what I'll think if he commits to Miami? I'll think the same thing that I thought when Reuben Owens committed to Louisville last year. I'll be like, I don't care what that kid says. Remember, I think Reuben got mad at me.
He got mad at both of us.
Because people were like, look at what he said. Because I was like, that kid's not going to Louisville. I can't tell you where he's going, but that kid's not going to Louisville. And he didn't.
No.
At the end of the day, what was obvious then was obvious on signing day. So I will literally laugh if that kid puts up the U. That kid's not going to Miami.
Hold on, Catch. Hold on. Let me do a big, if you like big butts and you cannot lie, let me put a big butt in this whole one. The guy who's the head coach at Miami is Mario Cristobal.
Fantastic recruiter.
He is a fantastic. He pulled Kelvin Banks over to Oregon, and he had him committed. And had that whole thing not happened, Kelvin Banks is probably over there, and he's probably a duck at this moment. So Mario Cristobal does have skin on the wall when it comes to recruiting.
No doubt.
Like it's not as crazy to me as Louisville, where you're just like, all right, dude, you're just clearly this got to be NIL.
But here's the thing: there are three things that I think make Miami just not realistic in November and December. One, I think the fact that LSU's 6 hours away from his home, where Texas is 2.5 hours away from home, he wants to be close to home. He wants to be close to his family. He wants to be close to his brother. He has said that out loud a lot. Then to go a couple of thousand miles away to Miami, that doesn't sound like what he wants. Colin Simmons has said he wants to play in the SEC. It is. I don't know that Texas is where it's at if Texas isn't going to the SEC. Last time I checked, Miami's not in the SEC. And the third thing is, while Miami is competitive in NIL, I think around the country, it's been made clear to Colin Simmons he cannot make more money elsewhere. That Texas is swinging a big bat, especially in recruiting, especially with 5 stars. These guys are getting high 6-figure deals. They're getting car deals. Look, I threw out to yesterday I was talking with somebody and I said, hey, word on the street is that LSU, I had an LSU, or actually Sukumel had an LSU source tell Jason that LSU indicated to Simmons that $75K on signing day, and then like $100,000, a little bit more than like $100,000 on top, and so about $200,000 total. I've had Texas people just laugh because that isn't. I said this yesterday. Diamontre Tucker Dorsey, when he transferred to Texas, got nearly twice that amount when he transferred. And NIL sponsorships, endorsements, whatever. Texas given Diamontre Tucker Dorsey twice what LSU is apparently telling Colin Simmons he can make if he comes to LSU. They are not competitive on the NIL front. And as much as Miami is a threat under normal circumstances, they are not putting together an NIL package for him when he arrives on campus that's better than what Texas is offering.
So it's just that, and that's fine. Hey, look, Catch, I appreciate it. For me, so I'm that person. Remember that Tupac song, I Get Around?
Yeah.
Okay.
I played it at my wedding.
Perfect, right? So
I just love that song.
So this is the thing when he says, like, when he goes, every time she sees me, she squeezes me. Lady, take it easy. Hate to sound sleazy, but tease me. I don't want if it's that easy. When it sounds so easy, it brings up my like suspicion note thing. Like it's like if something happens and it's like, man, so this is bonus. I'm almost out. It makes me take a step back and I go, what am I missing? Am I overlooking something? Am I being a little bit too confident here? Like so that's why I asked about the Miami thing, right? That's the reason why I said, okay, Miami's really easy to overlook. In this era of NIL, when you talk about his brother, for instance, there's enough money to move your brother down to South Beach, right? I mean, there's a lot of places.
Yeah, but I don't think that that's what this family wants to do.
Okay, I'm just saying.
And there are some families that are like, pay us the most amount of money. We're following our son, our brother to wherever he goes anyway. I haven't got the sense that that's what's happening here. And the reason why this sounds easy, because before the last 10 days occurred, for the previous 6 weeks before that, it was Texas in a runaway. There's still a part of me that believes a lot of the smoke and mirrors that we've seen in the last 10 days is about creating intrigue into this announcement. And I pointed this out on my show, which is about 3 weeks ago, there was a concern that Steve Wiltfong from 24/7 was going to flip his crystal ball from LSU, which he placed more than a year ago. He placed that like September of 2022. So it's not like a new future or crystal ball. There was fear that he would flip his future cast to Texas, and everybody in the industry kind of knows, okay, when Fong makes a future cast, he usually does it like 24 hours before. So as soon as it's made, you're like, whoa, okay, we're on commitment watch. And he's almost always right. I mean, he almost always gets it right, but it almost always comes at the exact end. Well, look, today, Colin Simmons is going to make his announcement on 24/7. I'm convinced that my sneaking suspicion is that they told we'll do this, but Fong, you don't flip your crystal ball. Don't spoil the announcement. I think that might have been part of the trade-off because I think Wiltfong knows where Colin Simmons is going. In fact, I've seen that he's reported that it's trending Texas's way, but he ain't changed that crystal ball yet. And I think he may have to take an L on the crystal ball in order for 24/7 to get the announcement today. And as I joked yesterday, okay, as far as concessions go, it's like, oh, my future cast percentage drops from 83.3 to 83.2, but we had the announcement on our YouTube channel. I guess we'll make that deal. I think this thing's going to be Texas. I have not in the last 48 hours been met with much concern on the Texas side.
Okay, fair enough. Hey, from your mouth to God's ears, Ketch. I've promised everyone here that we'll do Mimosa Fridays if this thing happens. Like everyone can just go ahead and bring their mimosa. I'll have my mimosa here, and we'll have a good old party. So I appreciate the clarity. I will still be watching at 2:00 and waiting and just kind of like, oh, I'll see.
You need to let everybody know that you're a conspiracy guy if they don't already know it. Like instinctively, you're right. If everybody's zagging or zigging, you zag.
Yeah, I am I am a conspiracy guy. Like I won't open up the whole. I won't talk about. I won't take this down a dark path where now all of a sudden we're getting canceled. But yes, I am conspiracy guy. I watch the YouTube things. I am all about conspiracies in medicine. I'm all about conspiracies in the government. I'm all about conspiracies. I don't believe in coincidences. All these kind of things. Catch. I was like, well, in my show the other day, I was like, Well, Joe Cook asked about Anthony Hill. And Sark got kind of a little, testy with him about the whole question about the future, this and that. And I was like, the next day or so, we get David Bender. I'm like, I don't believe in coincidences because why all of a sudden we got David Bender after all of a sudden you didn't like the Anthony Hill question. Like, that's who I am. So when I hear like, forget Miami, I'm like, what is it about Miami that we're not talking about? So, okay. So let's talk about the positives then. Let's just stay in this world where this thing does happen at 2:00. And Texas, Sark gets them. For those who are unfamiliar, Catch, because you got to we understand on this platform that we have people who are diehard into recruiting, but we have people who are just kind of casual, who don't go that, they know names and that's kind of what it is. Give people an idea of what the impact is to get a guy like a Colin Simmons and what that maybe even means for like the 2024 class.
I think Colin Simmons is the most explosive off-the-ball edge prospect that I've ever covered in the state of Texas. That doesn't mean I think he's the best player. I wouldn't rank him ahead of Myles Garrett. But Myles Garrett's a completely different animal. I mean, physically, Myles Garrett's bigger. He's just totally different animal. But when we're talking about pure pass rush specialists in the Von Miller mode, if you will, I think he's the best that I've ever covered in the state of Texas. Probably wouldn't quite rank him ahead of a guy like Alex Okafor, who was also a 5-star defensive end and an All-American at Texas. Again, because those defensive ends, a lot of these guys came in bigger packages. Okafor is like 6'5", 6'6". But in terms of get off the ball and in terms of getting to the quarterback, in terms of living in the backfield because guys can't get their hands on him, he's the best I've covered. He is not only freakish athletically, and when I say freakish, I'll go back to, I retweeted this earlier today, but I saw there's a Twitter page called Real Analytics.
Okay.
And one of the things that they tweeted in May was Colin Simmons' max get-off speed of 11.4 miles per hour is in the top 1% among 4,254 edge defenders in our database since 2009.
Wow.
So when I say this guy is the most explosive get-off-the-ball guy I've probably rated in 25 years of doing rankings in the state of Texas, that's what I'm talking about. But along with this burst off the ball, the closing speed, all of that, this is a guy who's insanely productive. But not only is he insanely productive, he's insanely productive for the number one Class 6A football program right now in the state, the defending state champions. And as he went through the playoffs last year, he raised his level of play in every game. And then when he gets to the state championship game, he's the dominating force in the state championship game with all the marbles on the table. So he's a freakish prospect, but he's a tremendous player. And when you combine freakish prospect with tremendous player, you get, I think, a 5-star level guy. The negative, if there's a negative with Colin Simmons, he's listed at 6'3", 225 pounds at the moment. That height-weight combo falls into the tweener category. More times than not, guys that are in that kind of size specification don't make it as college football players at high levels. The ones that do, though, are the ones with freaky burst off the ball. So, K'Lavon Chason, Joseph Osai, not rated that high, but when you look at like physical measurables, very similar. Von Miller, exactly the same thing. None of those guys ranked as 5 stars, but when you go back and look at the last 20 years of guys that had the physical profile of Simmons that actually made it at the highest levels, Brian Arakpo, another guy when he played on the 2005 national championship team, in this 6'3", 220-ish when Arakpo came out, maybe 6'3 and a half. The thing that separated all of those guys was elite get off, elite burst off the ball, the kind of stuff that not only translates to college, but translates to the NFL as well. On paper, Colin Simmons has that elite level burst that you think will make him the exception to this general rule that I have with tweeners who are less than 6'4", 240. You go below that at his position and you find more busts than you will certainly of guys that are bigger than 6'4", 240. So the negative is he's not Alex Okafor or Myles Garrett or a lot of these guys that tend to succeed at high levels at his position that have a ton of size. So that's the question mark with him. If you tell me right now in 3 or 4 years, Colin Simmons didn't work out, I'm going to go, the signs were there because he's a tweener, but he's ranked as a number one prospect in the state right now because his physical gifts in terms of speed, explosiveness, get off, and his overall play on the field suggests that he will be the exception rather than the trend. I truly believe that. Otherwise, I wouldn't rank him at number one, because I'm self-aware of what happens with these tweeners. And in the last 20 years, guys with his size profile that were ranked as 5-star players or almost 5-star players. You had Reggie Wilson in 2010, who signed with Texas, really didn't make it. You had Rashedi Jones in 2007, who signed with Oklahoma State, solid player, never a difference maker. You had Eddie Jones, who signs with Texas out of Kilgore in 2008 or 2006, really solid player, made like a couple of NFL practice squads, but never a dominating player. The thing that I think makes Simmons different than these other guys who were ranked as borderline or 5 stars in recruiting is his athletic skill set from, again, speed and quickness is superior to all 3 of those guys.
Ketchum, you and I, we've written these stories throughout the years, and I know I've written them in my time here, and there seems to have been things that haven't happened in recruiting and these streaks that need to end, right? And so one of them was, the offensive line, right? And not being able to recruit offensive linemen for a year. It seemed like Steve Sarkeesian checked that box with the previous recruiting class, getting a 5-star in there, potentially 2, depending on the recruiting service that you want to look at, right? The quarterback, right? How long had it been since Texas was able to get a 5-star quarterback? That streak seemingly, that came to an end when you want to talk about either the transfer of Quinn in or then the addition of a guy like Arch Manning. Linebacker, it wasn't as bad because they did have a guy like Malik Jefferson, got the receiver, 5-star receiver in the Jonte Cook, right? If you get defensive line, is that the final box of, okay, Texas hasn't been able to do this thing in recruiting. If they get Colin Simmons, does Steve Sarkeesian check that final box that says all these streaks that you guys have written about, they're all over?
Well, look, you said it. 5-star quarterback, in check. 5-star running back, check. 5-star receiver, check. 5-star tight end, not yet. Although Jatavion Sanders is on the roster, that's a Tom Herman guy. And those guys are really hard to find. 5-star offensive lineman, check.
Yeah.
5-star defensive tackle, waiting. 5-star edge player, waiting. 5-star linebacker, check. 5-star defensive back, check. So checks everywhere except tight end, which I think most people kind of understand, right? And they were in for the 5-star tight end in the Deuce Robinson. Like, Texas was a finalist there. It's not like they're not trying. There just aren't many guys out there that are that guy. I think on the defensive side of the ball, defensive tackle and edge rusher, they haven't signed an 5-star edge rusher since 2006. They haven't signed a 5-star defensive tackle since 2012. So at least a decade for each position at this level of a prospect. So it does remind me of Corey Redding in 1999, where they signed Chris Sims in that class. And he was the biggest name in that class. But Corey Redding was almost a bigger statement of intent that Texas wasn't, at the time, they weren't going into urban areas and landing prospects. They were having a real hard time getting into Dallas and Houston. They weren't getting elite defensive prospects. And they certainly weren't getting number 1 overall defensive players in the state or the country level prospects. So when they signed Corey Redding in 1999, it was almost like a statement to all of his peers: you can be an elite level defensive guy and come to Texas. And I think it's not quite the same thing. Trust me, it was way worse in 1999. I mean, literally, it was kind of shocking that Texas could go into North Shore and pull a kid, because they had not really been doing that. This is slightly different, but it is also very similar. Yes, I think there have been doubts. Oh, Sark can get the offensive guys. He can get the skill players. Can he get guys like, and look, if he doesn't get Colin Simmons, that will be what people say. Oh, it's the knock that Tom Herman had, right? Which is, oh, you can go get these 7-on-7 guys. But when it comes to the type of guys that win championships in the SEC, because Colin Simmons is a guy that LSU, Alabama, Georgia, they're the ones that typically get the Colin Simmonses of the world. So for Texas to be able to do this, it's significant on a lot of layers, but I think it will allow them to then next year and the year after go into the homes of 5-star level players at that position and say, we did it with Colin Simmons. And then it becomes critically important that Colin Simmons is a home run. For more than just Texas needs a badass pass rusher, the next time they go into a 5-star edge rusher's home, they need to be able to say, we can do with you what we just did with Colin Simmons. Look at him. And one of the things that LSU has used against Texas is to say, Pete Kwiatkowski hasn't ever had a guy like you. Yeah, he's produced some NFL players. He doesn't even know what to do with a 5-star guy like you. While we at LSU, oh, by the way, we just won a national championship in 2019. We've been putting out guys into the NFL at this position on the regular. They've been able to say, from an NFL standpoint, since 2014, we've put 80 guys into the NFL draft, and Texas has put 28. It doesn't matter that staff that's there isn't the staff that put those players into the NFL.
Right.
Guys don't care. Guys don't care that all they care about is the bottom line. And you give them a stat like that and it catches their eye. So Colin Simmons is the guinea pig in a lot of ways. And if he's successful, it really opens the doors wide open in the future. It's when you start having like look at the Malcolm Brown thing, right? It's been 11 years since Texas has signed a 5-star defensive tackle, and now it just feels like a thing. Yeah. Like big time defensive tackles don't pick Texas because they never pick Texas. And at some point you have to break that cycle. And a lot of times when you do, then you start getting guys. Look, Texas hadn't had a 5-star quarterback since Garrett Gilbert, right? But they get Quinn Ewers, and suddenly Arch Manning's jumping on board. Now you got KJ Lacey, who's going to be a 5-star quarterback. He's committed. Malik Murphy wasn't a 5. Well, at one point it looked like he might be a 5-star quarterback, but we've gotten to the point at quarterback where Malik Murphy as a prospect ranking is people are thumbing their noses. Oh, he was top 70 in the country. We only recruit 5-stars, right? So we've reached a point really quickly where the tide turned at the quarterback position. It can happen at these others, but you got to strike first before you can strike 5 times.
And the thing is, another part of this, and I know I'm going to let you go in a second, but doesn't the Colin Simmons thing kind of become the ultimate test of the SEC's impact? Because again, I've heard all these things over the years, like, well, the reason why Texas can't get alignment because they're not in the SEC, and all these SEC guys get drafted. No one wants to go to the Big 12 because you can't get drafted out of there. And the numbers obviously support that. Doesn't this become the ultimate barometer of this is how the SEC was, negatively impacted Texas? But now with Texas going to the SEC, this is how it should positively impact them. Like, because if this doesn't happen, then all the smoke about Texas and the SEC, like that kind of seems like it gets thrown out the window to a certain degree, right?
Colin Simmons is not, I don't even know if he's seriously considering Texas if Texas isn't in the SEC next year. Like, this is a guy who looks at what he does, what his position is. The SEC is the league that develops guys like him. You don't go to the Big 12, although the Big 12 would turn around and say, hey, we just produced Tyree Wilson. and the big freak out at Kansas State. We develop guys too, and the SEC would go, "Oh, that's cute. Pat the Big 12 on the head. You guys did 2 guys. Well done, Mr. 2-guy league." The SEC would say, "We do a half dozen guys like this every year. We put them into the NFL. They go make tons of money. And guys with his profile along the defensive line, historically, if even you go to the NFL, most of these guys are from the SEC that are all pro and Pro Bowl." I remember looking at a story, and I know we got to wrap this up, but I remember a story that The Athletic did where they did the recruiting rankings of all of the guys that were all pro, or it's either all pro or Pro Bowls. And you can go at different positions. You can look at the offensive line and you're like, man, you got dudes that were bus drivers when they were 21 who are all pro. You got guys like Lane Johnson, who's recruited as a quarterback, turns into possibly a Hall of Fame offensive lineman, and Oklahoma recruited him as a quarterback. The defensive line and guys like Colin Simmons, you look at the Pro Bowls and the All-Pro rosters, they're all 5-star guys. It's like, oh, recruiting really matters the most there. They don't bust there. They make $100 million in their lifetime there. And I think it'll be really disappointing if Colin Simmons isn't an extremely successful college football player, because all the signs point to he's exactly the kind of guy that should be a first-team All-American for a couple of seasons, or at least in those conversations.
All right, Catch, last one. I'm going to give you – this will be your last opportunity, because I feel like you've gone 10 toes down into thinking he's going to go to Texas. I'm going to give you your last opportunity if you want to couch it. If you want to go and if you just want to kind of protect yourself at all, I'm going to give you one last opportunity. And then after that, just let everybody know what's going to be going on for those who joined the show a little bit later, joining at the top of the hour here at 9 o'clock. By the way, over 300 of you. So let's get some likes in here. We'd love to have that. Go ahead and do that. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed to the channel. All right, Catch. I'm going to toss it to you one last time. Mr. You know me. I'm Mr. Suspicious. I'm Mr. I don't know. You still 10 toes down?
I mean, I'm not 10 toes down. Those are the words that you used.
Okay.
Those aren't the words that I would use, because if you told me today Colin Simmons woke up and changed his mind, there's been enough uncertainty in the last 10, 11 days that I think you got to leave open the possibility that things have been back and forth a little bit it could happen. I will lean on but I will go 10 toes deep on this. Colin Simmons will sign with Texas on signing day. That ultimately is the most important thing. And my sourcing tells me there just is no way on God's green earth that Colin Simmons' mom is going to let her boy walk away from a financial situation that's light years ahead of some of the alternatives. And that's not to say he wouldn't live a comfortable life at LSU and that he wouldn't make 6 figures, but I get the sense that this is just a different level of opportunity. And look, if somebody came to you and was like, yo, Ketch, I know I make good money at Orangebloods, but ESPN just offered me $750,000 a year to go work for them. A, you wouldn't turn that down. And B, I would be like, hey, Anwar, it's been real, but like, I can't stand in the way of 750.
Yeah.
So there gets to be a point where you say it's not all about money, but then the money gets to a certain level where you go, you know what? It's not all about money, but a lot of it is. It's not all. I'm not 10 toes deep on the money, but I might be 8 toes deep. and proximity can have another toe, and like, you know, the other toe can be the rest, but like maybe 8 toes for the amount of money that I think that kid knows he's going to make in NIL when he's at Texas. That's just different than everywhere else.
At the references to Coach Prime's toes in the chat are absolutely hilarious.
Don't do that, guys.
So, but
who said that? Who brought up Prime's toes, man?
There's a lot of Prime toes in the chat. So they're like, you're more like 8 toes down.
Oh no! I will not co-sign on that. I used the F word earlier. I won't, but that's effed up. That's effed up.
So just 2 quick things. Stanley says OU sucks. Okay, he wanted to throw that out there. Tom G kind of missed a little bit. Oh no, this is Joey Flores. Here's the soccer reference for Catch. Will we get the here we go? Also, wait, what is going? That's you.
There's a reporter in the professional soccer world, Fabrizio Romano, and every time, and he's the guy that breaks all of the big transfers. And when a deal is done, he says, here we go. Here we go. It's like his staple. So he's asking me, I probably won't do that because it would feel like I'm stealing. I do here we go all the time, but not in that context. It would feel like I'm literally copying somebody. I don't know that I would do that.
It'd be like doing the shish emoji when someone's about to commit. You're like, come on now. All right, and there was another one. I think Tom G had one in there as well, but I think that was I think Tom G joined it late because I think you kind of did address the measurables. Can you give him the cliff notes on that one?
Yeah, if there's a negative about Colin Simmons is he's not a monster physically, but not. And look, when I say a monster physically, let me go. Just real quick, I'll pull up the defensive end 5 stars that I was looking at earlier. So DeMarvion Leal went to Texas A&M a few years ago, 6'6", 270. Tunmai's Adiele goes to Texas A&M, 6'4", 255. Alex Okafor was 6'4", 232. Myles Garrett was 6'4", 245. Colin Simmons is 6'3", 225. Generally speaking, I think it's really important for defensive end prospects to be taller, 6'4" or taller, and to come into college listed at 240 or higher. Colin Simmons is below both of those marks. He is a classic tweener, but I would say this. If he were 6'4", 260, he doesn't have the thing that makes him special. The thing that makes him special is get off, speed, acceleration, quickness. He is in the top 1% of 1% there. If you make him bigger, he probably loses just a little bit of that, and maybe he's not quite as special. Yes, if someone wants to raise up the measurables, I'm not going to BS you and tell you I literally have that written in my instant analysis piece. It's unavoidable. The thing you're banking on is that his level of explosiveness, quickness, speed, all of that stuff is what makes him a unicorn like Von Miller, like K'Lavon Chason, like guys of that ilk who have become first-round draft picks or Hall of Fame players, also kind of undersized. But when you're a badass with so much speed that guys can't get their hands on you, those guys make a lot of money at both this level that he's about to be on and the level beyond that.
All right, so Catch, tell everybody what to expect from us on this channel, and then I'll let you go. Tell everybody what we got going on the rest of the day.
At noon, it's Simmons Palooza. Basically, from noon to 4, we'll be doing a lot of Colin Simmons, a lot of Texas football recruiting talk. Again, if you didn't miss it in the beginning, we'll probably have Aaron Little live from Duncanville at 1:20, which would be before any of the other shows go live. We will have a presence in Duncanville. We'll go out there. We'll get a preview from who's on the ground. After we'll be live during the announcement. We'll have the very first reaction. We will have Jason Simmons changing names now. Jason Sukumel will join us. The hope is to get Colin Simmons live on the show before the end of 4 o'clock. And then at 4 o'clock, we'll hand it over to Rod, but we'll still continue the Colin Simmons discussion. I may hang out either partially with Rod on his show or maybe the entire show. I'll let Rod decide kind of how much of me he wants, but it's going to be an all-day thing. This is like a celebration, a party more than anything else. And by the way, we're just real quick, Rogue Shop asks, if this was an LSU Bama recruitment, does this battle get this much attention? If the answer is no, why? Because it's Texas. I mean, that's the answer. I mean, he's getting all of this attention in Texas. The state of Louisiana is not shutting down today. The city of Miami is not doing Colin Simmons Palooza.
Yeah.
He's a Texas kid, the number one player in Texas. He's considering Texas. That's why this battle is getting this much attention. If it were just LSU and Alabama, we wouldn't even be talking about this today.
No, not
you'd be doing something else on the old fashioned.
Yes.
And you certainly wouldn't have given that speech about this is what all of the recruiting success that Steve Sarkeesian has had. We'd have just done something different.
Yes. We don't really pay. Only thing we pay attention is head-to-head battles and overall rankings. But yes, if you ask me to name anybody in LSU's recruiting class right now, I would draw a blank, and that's the reason why. All right, Ketch.
One more.
Oh, you got more? WT, boy, keep them coming. Ketch, you may not go.
You know how we do super chats? Does Simmons compare to Clowney coming out of high school?
Oh,
I would not rank him above Jadeveon Clowney as a prospect. Downey was the number one overall. He was a consensus number one guy. Colin Simmons is like ranked between 4th, 5th, 24/7. I think has him 20. Let me look at this real quick because I got it right in front of me. When we look at his national rankings, Rivals has him at 5th overall. ESPN has him at 7th overall. On3 has him at 4th overall. 24/7 has him at number 27 overall. Whereas Jadeveon Clowney was like number 1. So, and I don't know that I think Colin Simmons is going to eventually be a number 1 overall pick in the draft, but that's who Jadeveon Clowney was, both as a high school prospect and a college prospect. Bigger than Colin Simmons. And it's important to note that.
Well, you got to also hope too, by the way, that, I mean, look, number 1 draft is a number one pick is number 1 pick. Just got to hope that he actually has more staying power when it's all said and done. And Clowney just kind of flashed at times, but I don't think he was that consistent of a college player when it was all said and done.
I think he was a great college player. I think he's just been a mixed bag, but he wasn't dominant you know who he was a lot more like? He was a rich man's Joseph Osai, right? Because Osai had a bunch of pressures, but didn't always make big game-changing plays. The sacks weren't as high as you would have hoped them to be. Great player, don't get me wrong, but you wouldn't have said he was a dominant player at the collegiate level. He had like 5.5 sacks in his final season. 4 of them came in 1 game. So take that Oklahoma State game away from Joseph Osai in his last year, and now you're talking about a guy that over the other 11 games had less than 2 sacks, I think.
I don't want to go too far off topic. I think when a guy gets drafted overall, you'll look at it and you say to yourself, like, my God, like, sure. And then, I mean, but his final year, by the way, in South Carolina, he had 3 sacks. So, I mean, that's
fair.
So, you know, he peaked in year number 2, and then I don't think he never got better.
He was drafted to be a Hall of Famer.
Correct.
And that ain't happening, which makes him, while not a terrible player in the NFL, he's a bust.
Yes.
Stanley says, this dude is the same size as Jackson Jeffcoat was as a prospect, at least on paper. How do they compare? Jackson Jeffcoat, same size, was viewed as a strong side defensive end. Much more stout against the run, much more stout against the point of attack. His old man was Jim Jeffcoat of the Cowboys. So very well coached and disciplined in all of the areas. Colin Simmons is like a rocket ship off the edge. So, Stanley, you make, honestly, a great point. And look, Jeffcoat, I think, would have been a long-time NFL player, but he started having back problems. He started having injury issues, got a cup of coffee in the NFL. But so while their sizes are comparable, and look, Freudian slip there. Colin Simmons in the NFL is probably like a 3-4 outside linebacker. He probably spins back because I don't know that Colin Simmons is a 4-3 rush end. That's not completely who he is, where Jackson Jeffcoat was thought to be a strong side defensive end in a 4-3 scheme.
Yeah. Jeffcoat ends up not getting drafted when it's all said and done, right, Ketch?
Did not. He was Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year, but couldn't stay healthy, didn't get drafted. And then it didn't help that he's injured and undersized for kind of the position that he played, but did play a couple of seasons in the NFL and has had a long career in the Canadian Football League. But given, if you arrive with a 5-star ranking, Rivals is saying, we're grading this guy, we think, as a future first-round type of player. And they overrated Jackson Jeffcoat so did I back in the day. We undervalued, I think, the injury concerns that existed with him. And he was not an elite of the elite athlete in the way that Colin Simmons is.
It was interesting. The only reason I actually even have that in my memory was that I was still working at Yahoo at the time. I think you and I were talking, and I was covering the draft for Yahoo at that moment. And I think it was like that 2014 season or 2014 draft. And I remember thinking to myself, I was looking down, I was like, I don't think Texas has anybody that's been drafted so far. And I just remember, telling my editor at Yahoo, I was like, it was like day 3. I was like, I don't think Texas had anyone drafted. Let me look. And I was like, I need to monitor this. And it ended up being a story I ended up writing, but you and I were talking, so I wasn't quite sure how that would go over, with the Texas.
The truth is the truth.
Yeah, but I wrote it. I remember it. So that's the reason why I remember Jackson Jeffcoat, because he signed as an unrestricted free agent somewhere.
In a way, it was like your first Texas story, and it was not the last time you wrote that article.
Sadly, I wrote
Sadly, yes.
More than once. All right. Do we got some more super chats coming in, Ketch? Because I feel like they're rolling in right now. Wade Phillips would know what to do with Colin Simmons, Ketch.
Well, yeah, because Wade Phillips is like one of the 10 best defensive coordinators possibly in the history of the NFL. Like, that might be a little bit of hyperbole, but Wade Phillips would know what to do with Colin Simmons. Maybe someone let Sark know that, like, Wade Phillips could maybe needs to be hired on staff. Tom says, did you hit on last night's practice report? How concerned should we be about the safety play? It's still early in camp, guys. I wouldn't be worried. I think the thing to take away from last night's practice report, and Anwar mentioned it literally before I came on, Jalen Catalon's making a really positive impact early on. I think it's safe to say he's been described as the best safety on the team at this point. So they feel really good about what he's doing. They do want the rest of their safeties to kind of raise their level of play. But again, it's, we're still 3 weeks plus away from the first game. I don't think there's any real concern, but other than Jalen Catalon, there's no real reason to be throwing hyperbole at that position so far in camp.
Well, the thing is, Ketch, we know that they feel comfortable with Jaron Thompson. We know that that's out there. And I think the only question that from the staff point of view is just making sure that Jalen Catalon stays healthy and is ready to go when the season gets here, which is why he's not going, in back-to-back days in pads, and they're kind of protecting him a little bit as far as that is concerned. At least they'll put on like a green jersey, so he just is a kind of a non-contact for him. But they're very happy with him. Like, Steve Sarkeesian has praised him as one of the guys that he's really impressed with. So honestly, from a safety standpoint, Catch, I don't think there's any concern that's been verbalized to me, any concern from the staff at all. Definitely no concern from Steve Sarkeesian. Like, think they seem to be pretty good as relates to that. And then, the Sadir Mitchell thing that's out there, I've heard some a little bit different stuff on there. So I'm trying to get some clarity because I don't like site wars, as you know, Ketch. I'm not really into that whole, like, I may put out something to contradict your report. I'm just like, all right, let me get some more clarity on my end. And I'll put something on Orangebloods, but I'm not that. I'm going to go after someone because they reported something.
The thing to note about that, I thought my interpretation was Chip didn't report it on his site and then not take it to social media. That he was comfortable enough to tweet it out as a news story leads me to believe that there's probably is an issue with Sadir Mitchell. For those of you watching right now, you can all, if you ever want to read between the lines, if someone's reporting something, but they don't have the guts to put it out on social media, then you know that they're not 10 toes deep.
They're Deion toes deep.
You
I know. You dropped an F-bomb. Clearly we can talk Deion if that's the case.
I think one is way worse than the other. And the funny thing is the Puritans out there might tell me that the F-bomb is way worse than the 8-toe joke on Deion Sanders, but that's where we live. Trying to balance between which one was worse than the other. I'm going to sleep well tonight with my F-bomb, but I do know that there may be somebody out there who's like, how dare Ketch have said that? Meanwhile, 8-toe joke's okay.
100%. All right, Ketch. This is so much fun, Ketch. I gotta figure out how I'm gonna do the show.
I'm sorry, we went
No. It's perfect actually, because I think what I'll do is just kind of we'll go to a little pause. I'll do some of my social media standouts, and I'll probably just go wrap it up from there. Because I got hey, at least I got interviews today at 11 o'clock in the morning, as opposed to 10 something at night, which we had the other time. So at least we've progressed to morning interviews. Like I'm much happier with this.
Did you hear what happened last night on the live show?
No.
So I jumped on at 8 o'clock to just do an impromptu the night before Colin Simmons video. I was going strong. It was like 37, 40 minutes in. And then the reason why I did it at 8 was because at 9 o'clock, Chad Hastings, we've got a new show that we think is tentatively scheduled to begin next Wednesday, a night show. Mm-hmm. Former UT player involved. Hint, hint, just letting you guys know we got some more stuff coming. Well, they were doing a run through last night. So Chad, who before yesterday hadn't been in our studios, hopped into our studios and cut my live stream off, but didn't know that that's what he did. So Blake comes on. He's like, hey, Ketch, you're not on anymore. And Chad's like, what did I do?
So you jumped in the studio and then that just ended your show.
Because I think he hit the record button or something. I didn't. It was time for me to get off anyway. What's that?
You can jump in the studio and be on the side there.
You're at Blake. Turn your screen on real quick. Come in. Come on. Wake up, Blake. Come on in, Blake. What happened, Blake? Yeah. Can you?
I have no idea. He hopped in into the stream. That's all there is to know.
Okay. Yeah, that's what happened. Okay. Thank you, Blake, for that contribution.
Yeah, I mean that was worth bringing him in.
Yeah, I had no idea. It all happened at the same time. We were sitting here and it just went into the stream, and I was like, well, Chad's in here.
Yeah. Okay. So Chad did it. Anybody that either watched that live last night or watches the video at some point today, maybe between 11 and 12. Anyway, yes. Sorry. Okay. No more filibustering.
Okay. No, it's all good. It's been good. It's been good because I was trying to figure out how I wanted to craft the last hour of the show. Now I got to figure out how I want to craft the last 20 minutes of it, which is way easier.
Oh, because you have a short show today because you got to go be up at UT.
Yes.
Do you want me to just do the last 30 minutes with you?
Yes. Why not? All right, Blake, let's go ahead and cut into our social media standouts. let's just go ahead and get that there. And if you guys want to get some quick buy or sell questions, go ahead and put that in the chat as well. But this is one of my favorite parts of the show. It's our social media standouts. Blake, go ahead and find that and go ahead and put the first. Oh, do you want to go to a quick break? Do you want to play the Bills first? What do you want to do? Put it in the chat.
Let's pay the bills.
All right. Well, I got two different ones. What do we want to do?
It's your show.
All right, well, let's pay the bills real quick. And we're going to come back. Ketchum's going to hang around. We're going to do some social media standouts and still talk Colin Simmons. So let's do a quick break.
This Orangebloods recruiting flashback focuses on one of the biggest UT football stars of the last decade. Bijan Robinson was a 5-star prospect by Rivals when he signed with the Longhorns, finishing as the nation's number 18 overall prospect, the second best prospect in the state of Arizona, and the number 1 running back in the country, according to Rivals.com. Upon retrospect, it's kind of amazing that former running backs coach Stan Drayton was able to land Robinson when you consider that Ohio State was perceived as a massive leader for much of his recruitment. In fact, on the day he committed, Rivals.com recruiting analyst Adam Gorney told Orangebloods, quote, even after the Atlanta 5-star challenge, it almost felt like Ohio State was the foregone winner, Gorney said that day. But as it got closer, I think the realization that he would basically be going across the country to play football kind of set in. He really, really liked Texas and USC a lot, had connections to both schools, liked the staffs, and how they would use him, and wound up finding a school closer to home that he was very happy with. It wasn't until Robinson visited Texas on an unofficial visit for the spring game in April that Texas began to make it surge. By the time June rolled around, a couple of months later, the Longhorns had emerged as a team to beat in his recruitment. Robinson was a part of a 2020 recruiting class that finished 14th in the nation that year in the Rivals.com rankings, and what turned out to be the final full recruiting class for Tom Herman. A few years later, and there's not a ton of meat on the bone with respects to the elite prospects from that year outside of Robinson. Jake Majors and Jaron Thompson remain as a few of the higher ranked players in that class, but it's actually 2 of the lower ranked prospects in the class, Jahdae Barron and Jalen Ford, that have made the biggest impact as the class begins to wrap up its contribution to the Texas football program.
All right, Ketch, are you ready for our social media standouts? Are you ready to see who has stood out on social media? All right, Blake, go ahead and put the first one up on the screen for me here. Ketch, this will be near and dear to your heart right here. Janae Jefferson was named the Women's Professional Fast Pitch Player of the Year, infielder for the Texas Smoke. You're very familiar with her, right? Aren't you, Ketch?
I love Janae Jefferson, former Orangebloods athlete during our NIL era from 2 years ago. You know what's exciting about that is that if she's playing at that, I don't know anything about that league, but if it's a pro league and she's the best player in it, maybe that puts her in a position to be involved when like the Olympics roll around. I mean, that's for softball has always felt like the king of the mountain, the queen of the mountain is on the softball side who plays in the Olympics. And I have never thought of Janae Jefferson as a potential Olympian, but maybe we should all start. I mean, that's not that far around away. So maybe we're looking at somebody who can be the second Longhorn women's softball player. I can't think of anybody other than Kat. Maybe there was somebody in the 90s or the 80s, but Janae Jefferson's fantastic. And I love her. She's just an awesome human being.
Yeah, I mean, she did so good on the videos and, was really supportive and this and that when that first NIL deals, when we signed, where Ketch almost had, I think, a player in just about every sport at one point.
A lot of good that did us.
That was about 2 years ago when we tried that experiment. I guess, what is it? Every 2 years we try something different, try something new.
You guys stay tuned for 2025. It's going to be a banger.
24 hours of coverage at all hours of the day on Orangebloods. Who amongst us wants to sign up for that 3 to 5 slot? Because we got an opening for, and I'm talking about AM, by the way.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
All right, Blake, we got more. We just got some more social media standouts. Who else we got here? Okay, this is interesting to me, Catch. Because someone goes, pickleball feels like some elaborate experiment just to see if we'll watch, and it's riveting. Pickleball is everywhere, Catch. Like, I don't know a single person most people that are playing pickleball. I don't know what happened to cornhole. Like, is that just such an old thing? Like, no one's doing cornhole, no one's not. It's like everybody is on a pickleball court nowadays.
I've never played pickleball. I have no interest in pickleball. If I have time to go play outside on a court with a ball, it'll be basketball.
Okay. But pickleball but do you know people who are playing, right? You know,
Todd Babers told us that he keeps a pickleball equipment in his car in the event that like a pickup pickleball game breaks out. He's ready.
You have to have a court for that, though. Like, no, that's not just, I mean, or just do people just bring their nets?
Hey, man, they're playing pickleball out in the streets on war, using parked cars for streets. Reminds me when I was a kid, when you play pickup football in the street, and inevitably someone would run into a car.
Yes.
You can't play street football until someone loses their whereabouts and just wham right into a car. I don't know if that's happening in the pickleball world.
You know what, Catch? That's the off-season narrative that we haven't heard from UT. You know what, guys? We are stronger as a team because we play pickleball together. Like that if we hear that, then we know 12-0 championship, because forget ping pong. We need to have the summer of pickleball. Okay, you're not excited.
Blake's like there are courts all over Austin now, I guess.
They literally are everywhere now.
Aren't those just tennis courts though?
I don't get it.
Like, put that back up real quick so I can take a look at it, Blake. That looks like a modified tennis court.
Yeah, but the ball, I don't know if the ball looks bigger and maybe
it's different. It's different. There are pickleball courts everywhere.
I know it's different. I'm just saying you could play pickleball on a tennis court.
Yes, you just have to lower the net, I think.
That's some real regulation talk right there. I mean, yeah, you could, Anwar, but the net would have to be lowered by 3.5 inches.
They have tournaments and stuff now, Catch. I'm just saying, like that. It's a thing. I don't know what's going on, but it absolutely.
It's enough that I'm a soccer guy.
Yeah,
I've made the conversion. I don't have room in my. If the only way I become a pickleball guy, and you know this, if one of your children, joins a pickleball team, well, then your life changes. So that's where I'm at. If just like if Max decided, Dad, you know what the coolest sport is? Pickleball. And I want to be a professional pickleball player. And if that happens, then you have to get into it.
What does SEC Chad saying? He says they're converting to big box stores like Bed Bath & Beyond into indoor pickleball court facilities. He would have to know this for a specific reason, by the way.
Well, maybe he was going to quite a surprise when you're trying to buy some towels for the bathroom and you're like, what happened to Bed Bath & Beyond?
Where's my cat? I got my coupon to come every single damn week in the freaking mail.
It's like a pickleball court for 6 months, and then they turn it into a Halloween store. Like that's what they do with all these, failing Best Buy, Bed Bath & Beyond, these huge buildings. Got to do something with them.
All right, what else we got? We got another one, Blake. Let's put up another one of our social media standouts here. This is interesting, Catch.
I saw this last night.
The tiers of quarterbacks that were put out by the College Football Report here, Catch. And we obviously see Drake Mays up there. We see Caleb Williams. Obviously, we see the second tier, but it gets real interesting, Catch. They put Dylan Gabriel in the third tier.
Give me a break.
And they put Quinn in the fourth tier.
Look, I'm okay with Quinn being on the fourth tier at this point, right? Because He wasn't good last year on the whole, but Dillon Gabriel's just a guy. The Oklahoma coaches would not take Dillon Gabriel over Quinn Ewers, and no coach in America would either. So I have a problem with Drake May being even with Caleb Williams. I don't believe that. I don't care what anybody says about Drake May. Don't put his name in the vicinity of Caleb Williams, because I'm not even giving it a second thought. Now, I'm okay with Drake May being a tier 2 guy. I might put him up there with our boy from Washington, who we saw up close a year ago.
Penix.
The rest of these guys are just a pack of guys. But there's nobody on tier 3 that I would take over Quinn Ewers. And I say that knowing I'm admitting that Quinn Ewers at the end of last season, his final numbers weren't great, but those dudes aren't better than Quinn Ewers. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Catch, I'm okay. First of all, I feel like Caleb Williams should be on a tier of his own. Like if you're just being just keeping a butt, I think it's Caleb Williams and everybody else. The only other person I think you could make an argument would be for Penix, the Washington quarterback. I think you can have an argument just based on the numbers. But saying Quinn Ewers, who some people project to be a first-round pick, is number 4. Now, which one's more egregious, though? Quinn Ewers at number 4 or Spencer Rattler at tier 5?
The most egregious thing on that on the entire graphic is that Jalen Daniels is tier 6 behind all these dudes.
Yeah. Yeah.
The person that put that together does not know what they're talking about. I mean, let me tell you right now, if Oklahoma could make a trade for Dillon Gabriel for Jalen Daniels, that dude changes. Jalen Daniels on Oklahoma changes Oklahoma. They're top 10 in the country with Jalen Daniels.
Yes.
Dillon Gabriel is just some dude that they can use to beat up, the little sisters of the poor with. He has never been really good against good competition. It was the knock against him at Central Florida was that he beat up on the small teams, and on the rare occasions when they played better teams, a Louisville, for example, he didn't step up to the challenge, and we didn't see that. Dillon Gabriel was the quarterback for Oklahoma last year when TCU came and beat them down before Texas even got a piece of them.
Yes.
It was like 35-0 in the second quarter. And he sucked. Dillon Gabriel ran over.
All right. I got 3 more, Catch. Let's go to our next one, by the way.
Ooh, we have more.
Yes. Yolanda Taylor. I'm going to tell you why I put this one up. Come on, Hook'em family. Throw up those Hook'ems. Let's bring our Texas boy home, Colin Simmons. Let's go. Do you know who this is, Catch?
I don't.
It's Jalen Ford's mom.
Oh.
Yes, Miss Taylor, Jalen Ford's mom. Like a lot of the other moms who I've seen on Twitter of either current players or commits, she's amongst them who has been saying, "Hey, they want some Colin Simmons, and they want to bring him home." So I thought that was really cool to put that up. We've got 2 more, right there, Catch. So we got 2 more to knock out. Go ahead, Blake. Put up the second one. Okay, we got to talk about this one. This is from our guy, Drew. He goes, I walk away from the untold Manti Te'o feeling bad for him, but respecting him as a good human being. 5 minutes into Johnny Manziel's, and I think it'll just cement what I already think about him. Pompous, entitled a-hole. And then he goes, yeah, I don't think this doc did Johnny Manziel any favors. I don't feel sorry for him. Nothing really humanized him. He still comes off as a villain who hasn't really learned anything. I watched it yesterday, Catch. I finally told myself I'm going to watch this thing. I went into the documentary. You can take it off, Blake, by the way. I went into the documentary. Thank you, Blake. I went into the documentary kind of feel like I didn't want to watch it because I was just like, there was nothing about Johnny football that ever caught my attention. I just thought just entitled, arrogant kid who everybody just was an enabler to. And when I walked away from that, I just thought all I saw was a bunch of enablers, a bunch of liars, and there was nothing about it that made me sympathetic or empathetic towards him. I walked away kind of how I walked in, shoulder shrug, don't care.
I got the sense in watching that the Johnny Manziel and his family, it felt like they had probably had approval on what could be used and what couldn't be used. The more I'm removed from it, the more the bad parts really stick out. And the glossed over. In a matter of like 7 minutes, they skimmed over him potentially abusing his fiance. Like they got up to the point where he was about to say, I did some stuff, and then they just moved on and skipped over it. Diagnosed as bipolar. If that's true, might want to tell us that in the very beginning. Seems like kind of important context for everything that we're going to watch. The suicide thing, that could have been an hour. Tell us what happened. That seems notable. You tried to shoot yourself in the head with a gun and it went click and you spent 30 seconds on that. Like, I don't know how much of it I believe. He does not come across as a good human being and he doesn't want to. Is there anything more disgusting from an entitled standpoint than a guy who should have learned a lot of lessons and hasn't and doesn't care? He gloats that he never studied film in the NFL. That's a punchline in the documentary. It's actually an example of privilege and excess that he had, that he felt that was okay. Not only okay, but okay to joke about. It's like, imagine working with somebody and it's like, oh, well, I haven't tried at work ever. You don't respect people. Like Johnny doesn't come away as a guy from that you respect really in any way. Hell of a football player. I wouldn't want to spend 5 minutes with him.
No. And the thing is, you know what makes it hard for me, that made that thing hard for me, Ketch, is that everybody in there admits that they were liars. Like they all admit that they lied. Like, oh, you know, I'm gonna lie about like faking a heart attack in order to cover up for him. Like that's your parents would admit to lying for you, so to cover up for you. There's a thing in there where like, you know, the what do you call the when they try to get his urine clean and things to that effect, like all the things that they were doing for that, how the workout, the pro day workout, like all the receivers are all drunk and hungover, right? So they just kind of lie for that. I just saw a bunch of liars. So the thing about liars, Ketch, it's hard to know when they're telling the truth.
That's what I'm saying. I didn't know, as he's telling me bipolar and suicide and I don't know. Like, if that was really the case, isn't there someone else? Shouldn't you? I don't know. Like, I don't know. And I think the thing is, I can't help. I don't want to wake up and to a Johnny Manziel killed himself story. So I have some real human compassion and consideration that I'd like to see Johnny Manziel find a second act in life that he loves as much as he loved playing high school football. But I don't even know that he wants that. This is a guy that told us he wanted to spend all his money and then end his life once he was down to his last nickel. Is that true, though? I mean, what I know is he ain't getting a job. He has no real interest in doing anything. And here's the thing. If you're one of those dudes hanging out at his house, you're a fucking lowlife, man. You wouldn't have caught me dead in that documentary hanging out at Johnny Manziel's house, getting drunk and smoking weed. I got no problem with getting drunk and smoking weed. Do what you want to do. But to place yourself in that situation means you're okay with the world watching Netflix and thinking you're a hanger-on for that guy.
Yeah. Yes. 100%. and you're okay. But they are hanger-ons, though. That's to a person who's not even in his prime. Like there's other people who are somewhat douchebag and has hanger-ons, like Baker. He's a douchebag, and I've met his hanger-ons. I don't like any of them, right? But nonetheless, he's still in the league. So at least if you're going to be a hanger-on to a douchebag, then at least he's still in the league. Like, that guy's not even in the league, and you're hanging on to someone who's basically. I felt like I kept watching it to myself, and I'm like, Ketch, at what point is somebody going to take this guy to counseling? And all I saw was that, like, Cliff Kingsbury just knows, hey, this guy's showing up drunk, but hey, he's ready to go. That was one of his best performances, man. I'm like, what? Like, all you guys are horrible human beings. Like, his
dad, Anwar, his dad said that it was Kevin Sumlin's job to raise his son into a man. We're fathers. You got a 10-year-old. I got a 9-year-old. At no point on a daily basis does it ever cross my mind that, man, I just got to make it till this kid gets 18.
Yeah.
So I can turn him over to somebody else so that they can make him into a good person. That's his dad. And you know what? That's who he hangs out with now.
Yeah.
The guy that didn't have time to be his dad fully is the guy he's playing in the ring.
The whole thing was horrible. The whole thing rubbed me the wrong way. And Tom G throws something up here in the super chat, Catch. With all the Johnny Manziel talk said, would you take him as your starting QB at Texas if you can turn back the clock instead of Ash?
Of course. That's the problem, though. I mean, Johnny Manziel is one of the best 5 to 10 quarterbacks that have ever played college football. I mean, I don't know that I'm putting him up there with VY and Cam Newton, but he's close. He's in the conversation. And that's the problem, is that I will admit my hypocrisy. He ain't my cup of tea, but you'd probably take him on your team I couldn't imagine him. I can't imagine him surviving 3 or 4 years at Texas. Oh God. He was in Austin, Anwar. You weren't here for this. He was in Austin while at A&M, and he was constantly they show the picture of him on an inflatable unicorn in the doc. It's a real fast photo, and it's like, yeah, that's the night he went to Austin, got hammered, and photos of him floating on water on a unicorn with like a bottle in his hand show up. Would not have survived 3 or 4 years at Texas. But yes, would you take him instead of David Ash? You know what this reminds me of, Anwar? When troubled players always get second chances.
Always.
Because the next coach always thinks, I can get it out of him. I can make it right. The Cleveland Browns thought, they drafted him in the first round and thought they could make it right with him. And you know what? How he returned their trust in him. He never once looked 0.0. And when Johnny was asked about it, he had the gall to do this.
Correct. Catch. Let me tell you this. In the NFL, is a league that I covered for years, in the locker room, because Johnny talked about how it wasn't fun for him anymore because, he didn't really have that vibe in the locker room like he had in college. In the NFL, Catch, and this is for everybody out there, you want to know about the secret sauce. There's 2 things that you don't mess with in the NFL in the locker room: wives and money. Those are the 2 untouchable things. And the one thing about an NFL locker room is this: when they see other people who aren't putting in work, you're messing with my money. You're messing with my kids' money, my generation, mama's money, everything like that. They will not like you. They will not respect you. They will not F with you. If they know you're out partying and you ain't putting in the work, those guys won't talk to you. I was in Tampa Bay when Sapp, Brooks, and John Lynch met to kick Keyshawn Johnson off the team because he was too disruptive. Because they're like, you're messing with our money. It's not what they do in the NFL. You get away with that in college. This is a business. All those guys care about his money. So that's why they didn't mess with him. That's why they didn't like him, because he was messing with their money.
And he wanted to live in a world where he could just show up on Sundays, play the games, and not put in the work like everybody else. I can't believe
that whole story about him going to Vegas the night before. I know Tanji puts it in there. Catch, you do walkthroughs the night before a game. You have team meetings. You do a walkthrough in the hotel ballroom somewhere, and you go through the plays. Like, you don't just show back up on Sunday. Like, you literally have. That's what they didn't mention in that. No, he didn't just like, I'm going to show up on Sunday. No, I'm going to skip the team meetings, the position meetings, the game plan meetings. I'm going to skip the walkthrough that we're supposed to do. Like, that's what he skipped. He didn't just show up late for his Southwest flight. No, he was like, I'm skipping all team activities. I'm leaving the team to go party. That's really what it was.
I can't believe he didn't get his ass kicked. Because you and I both have covered NFL teams. On every NFL team, there's at least a handful of guys that, if they weren't NFL players, they might be murderers. Like, they might, you know what I mean? Like, if they didn't have the structure of like, I got to behave, they might otherwise be like violent criminals.
I covered Kellen Winslow. What are you talking about?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I can't believe once he started messing with dude's money, I cannot believe that did not end up with Johnny Manziel got his ass beat in practice today. And the thing is, if it had happened, the Brown players would have supported the dude that whipped his ass. Absolutely. And the coaches would have known that. Yes. So, like, how they handled a suspension or fines or whatever, they would have known deep down he literally exhibited the frustration that everybody in the locker room feels. Johnny, no self-awareness that people were depending on him.
Yes.
What if today you wanted me to come on, and I know we got to go, so I'll just say this and I'll be quiet. What if today I just no-showed you, no-showed my show, no-showed the message board, no-showed my instant analysis column? What if I just disappeared today?
Be horrible. Yeah,
you don't do that, man. You got people depending on you. And when you do shit like that, what it says is, I don't care about none of you.
Correct.
And I can't placate people like that.
No.
I don't want to be in the room with somebody who has that level of disrespect for the world. So I watched it. I would have watched more. He was an entertaining football player. He's probably like, I think I would rather hang out with bin Laden than freaking Johnny Manziel. He's the worst. He is, for me, the worst kind of human being. And this is what bothered me with Kyler Murray. It's weird that the state of Texas, in a very short amount of time, went Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, and Kyler Murray. They all kind of have like the same thing going on. Kyler doesn't watch film. Baker's getting arrested and tackled by police. Like, all of those dudes, great college players, but not dudes that I would trust to babysit my kids.
No. I mean, Baker was so hated in Cleveland, like they didn't want to resign him. Like players didn't like him. Like people were putting out videos that mixtapes to show how crappy he was. Like yes, it's a weird thing. Jalen Hurts breaks the streak. Thank God. Like he ends up being the guy. He ends up being the guy that breaks the streak when it's all said and done.
It also makes Quinn, by comparison, maybe we cut Quinn Ewers even more slack, because what he's done in this offseason is a level of commitment that I don't know that any of those dudes have ever put in.
That's you know what, fascinating one. All right, Ketch. Let's do Blake. Let's do one last one, and then we'll go ahead and wrap the show up. Let's do one last social media standout, Ketch. Wait, or not.
There we go. Oh no.
Okay, this will take us down another 30 minutes here. But message board genius screenshot something from Orangebloods. Do this. Arch Manning is a bust. Here's the thing: you can be a social media standout for a good way or a bad way. It can go any particular thing, but this thread basically kind of went down the road. And when you have to, and when you have to say, hey, calling him a bust now is idiotic, but is it? You already answered your question, right? You already answered your question, but you decided to keep going and going and going and going. And yes, Ketch, this is that happened. That happened yesterday, Ketch. Randomly, someone wants to say that a guy who's never played in any game is somehow a bust. There's nothing to say.
There were some people who were like, Ketch, you got to take this down. And it's like, why? If I'm moderating the board and eliminating all stupidity, I will never stop monitoring the message. Like, I'll just be deleting posts all day. Like, one good thing I've always felt about Orangebloods is that the board polices itself. And that thread is a whole lot of the board policing itself. There's nothing that I can do that actually would be better than just letting the medicine come in. And that guy, Ben Chode posts on the board all the time. He'll never be thought of again in any other way other than that's the dude that made that post about Arch. He won't, as a poster, as a member of our community, that will never, ever go away.
And the thing is, and one thing, those who are new to the community and those who are unfamiliar but will get on at some point, certain threads people will bookmark and they will randomly just bump that thread like Luka is a bust.
Yes.
Somebody,
you know what? It would be funny if he just said, this was my Luka Doncic. Like, I was just inspired. This is tongue in cheek.
Yes.
I'm just doing the Luka Doncic thing.
Yes.
But he didn't.
No.
That's not what he was doing.
No.
And I really, honestly, if he comes back and says it, there's ways where he could have pulled that off and it would have been funny.
Yeah.
Can't be serious, though, and you can't stand on a table. I mean, look, you and I would both agree, like, Arch can play better. Neither one of us would say Arch has taken the world by storm since he's been on campus, but we're not even in his freshman year. Like, he enrolled in the spring. It's camp. Slow down. Because honestly, you could say this about everybody not named Jonte Cook at this point that's in that freshman class. Ain't nobody starting. Anyway.
I mean, I don't know how he's a bust over a guy who's been on campus for a year and another guy, two guys who have been on campus longer than him and to know the system longer than him. And then, it's I don't even know where to start or finish with that, but that happened. Those are our social media standouts.
Onward, that's like saying Anthony Richardson is a bust with the Colts.
Correct.
Hadn't played in a preseason game yet. hasn't done a rookie season yet. He's a bust. He's a bust. I mean, careful being. Chad Hastings has an expression where he says, "Careful about being emphatic," and that's a perfect example of, maybe be a little less emphatic.
It's when you go 8 toes down, Catch. So on that note, that's what. No hanging leads here, Catch. There's no hanging leads in this thing. Catch.
This reminds me of when I talked shit about Eric Bieniemy once, and he was standing behind me.
No. And
I thought, I'm about to get murdered. And you know what? I would have deserved it.
He's a big guy. That's a big guy, though. I feel like everyone in Washington wants to murder him at this point. So there is that's going on. All right, Catch, real quick. Tell everybody what to expect from you and Chad starting at noon on our channel today.
Wall to wall, Simmons Palooza. Guests, commentary, discussion, the absolute latest, live from Duncanville, 4 straight hours. It'll be unlike anything that we've ever done before for a prospect.
All right, so you guys know. So listen, I've got interviews to do. So unfortunately, I've got to cut this one a little bit short today. But again, I'm happy that UT is making them available at 11 o'clock in the morning as opposed to 11 o'clock at night. So yes, they will have wall-to-wall starting at 12 o'clock, going up until at least 4 o'clock. So the Rod Baber show gets pushed back just a little bit, so we make sure we give Colin Simmons his just due. Do not go anywhere. Like, again, it will be wall-to-wall coverage, the kind of coverage that you're going to expect from OB Live, you're going to get from OB Live. Like, we will be here. Catch is not going anywhere. Catch is not getting his dry cleaning. That's off the table today. So he will not be able to get his dry cleaning. He's just got enough chance to go change clothes and then go from there. So looks like we're having some issues or something like that. I think we're good. So
he's having connection issues.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nonetheless, let me wrap up this show. Thank you, Jeff, for showing up. I absolutely appreciate you. You've done a fantastic job filling us in on Colin Simmons. Listen, if you missed what Catch said and you came in a little bit late, you've got some time, right? You got some time to go back, watch the first part of it, get the setup. Then we'll talk some more Colin Simmons at noon. From noon to 4, wall to wall, Colin Simmons. You're not going to get 4 hours of Colin Simmons anywhere else. You may get some Colin Simmons, but you're not going to get 4 hours. So, not to say nobody else is going to do something, but I want to see someone who's doing live 4 hours of talking Colin Simmons. It's not going to happen. So you make sure you get in the house divided. Make sure if you still made it this far, hit like, please. I like those like buttons. Hit subscribe if you haven't done that thing yet. We absolutely appreciate it. And come back on this channel in 2 hours and get House Divided with Chad and Catch. So that's it for Jeff Ketchum, for Blake, for everybody else in the OB crew. Thank you so much, and thank you guys for showing up, showing out. Appreciate you. I'll be back tomorrow morning. Remember, I always say, live each day like it was your last.